This week on Christian World News, attempted murder against a U.S. Supreme Court justice, crisis pregnancy centers firebombed, and churches vandalized. Why violence is on the rise against pro-lifers in America. Plus, massacre in Nigeria. Gunmen target a church on Pentecost Sunday. What's behind this deadly attack? And is this the burial cloth of Christ or just a medieval forgery? We examine the latest evidence for the Shroud of Turin. The Shroud of Turin, I should have said. Well, welcome to Christian World News, everyone. I'm Wendy Griffith. A man carrying a gun, a knife, and zip ties outside a Supreme Court justice's home has been charged with attempted murder. This as violence against pro-lifers is escalating all across America. Heather Sells reports on a crisis that's expected to get much worse if the court overturns the ruling protecting abortion.
U.S. Marshals patrolled outside the home of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh on Wednesday after arresting and charging a California man with attempted murder. He allegedly said he was upset about the leaked Supreme Court opinion on abortion and the shooting in Uvalde.
We will not go back!
Since the leaked opinion, protesters have gathered regularly outside the homes of Kavanaugh and other conservative justices. On Tuesday, Homeland Security warned that the High Court's abortion case, along with immigration and the midterm elections, could trigger extremist violence. The president has condemned any threats, violence, or vandalism against the justices, but he has stayed silent on the hate crimes against the pro-life groups. Many remember the threat Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer made to Kavanaugh at a rally 2 years ago.
You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions.
The justices aren't the only ones feeling the heat right now. Abortion terrorists have also targeted pro-life organizations across the country.
The latest target, a pro-life crisis pregnancy center in Buffalo, New York. It was firebombed in the middle of the night.
The building itself sustained heavy damage.
Reverend Jim Harden leads the center and says it will take months to repair.
It is unusable at present, at least 25% fire damage and 100% smoke damage throughout.
With signature graffiti on the side of his building, Harden suspects the abortion terrorist group Jane's Revenge. They could also be responsible for fire bombings at two other pro-life groups in Wisconsin and Oregon. In addition, a dozen or so crisis pregnancy centers are reporting vandalism and threatening messages. Sue Liebel leads pro-life strategy at the state level and says she expects the intimidation and the violence to continue.
When someone feels like they've lost something, they're more angry, they're more intense about that.
Liebel predicts that post-Roe, there will be heavy picketing and riots near state houses debating abortion. In this challenging climate, pro-life groups like Students for Life of America are hiring security guards and teaching volunteers at rallies how to stay safe.
A lot of times we instruct students just to remain silent, not to engage. If you are engaging, engage in a dialogue, in a one-on-one conversation, not shouting.
For now, Compass Care is serving women in an alternate location, and morale, he says, is high.
The church in particular in New York has rallied. There's been an outpouring of support. People wanting to volunteer, people wanting to give.
Most Supreme Court analysts expect a decision later this month or even in early July. For pro-life organizations, that means heightened security and vigilance as the country watches and waits. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Thanks, Heather. The Archbishop of San Francisco is taking a stand against Catholic politicians who support abortion. He's forbidding House Speaker Nancy Pelosi from receiving communion for her stance. Others say President Biden should face the same treatment. Well, Speaker Pelosi recently said that the science surrounding abortion hasn't changed in the 50 years since Roe v. Wade. Pro-life groups disagree. They credit the role scientific advancements have played in convincing many women not to have an abortion. Charlene Aaron reports.
While discussing that leaked Supreme Court opinion that signaled a potential end of Roe versus Wade, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi made comments regarding abortion that many say highlight just how out of touch her party really is when it comes to the issue of life and the science that supports it.
The science hasn't changed, but the court changed, and therefore they're deciding that it will be different.
Dr. Tara Sander-Lee, director of life sciences at Charlotte Lozier Institute, disagrees with Pelosi, adding the speaker seems unaware of technological advancements since Roe.
For 3 years, she's been telling America to follow the science, but at this moment, she's choosing to ignore the science because it's inconvenient to her extreme political agenda.
Since the 1973 ruling legalizing abortion, ultrasound technology has boomed, providing a window into the womb for millions who now post images of their unborn babies on their refrigerators. According to 40 Days for Life, 93% of women who have ultrasounds choose to keep their babies.
Now in 2022, not only do we have ultrasounds, but we have, 3D ultrasounds. We have ultrasounds where you can really get this beautiful, clear image of a baby growing in the womb.
Christina Bennett, a correspondent with the group Live Action, explains how the internet has also provided a unique view of the unborn.
Live Action has a video called Baby Olivia, which goes through the whole development of a baby. You can just go on YouTube and watch that video. Technology through the internet and through, of course, medical science, even just us understanding that babies can feel pain after 20 weeks, even those things we were not aware of.
Dr. Gracie Christie, a diagnostic radiologist and policy advisor for the Catholic Association, submitted a brief in the key Supreme Court case Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health, describing the science used in Roe as outdated.
We've developed a different appreciation of the humanity of the fetus that we didn't have back then through ultrasound, and my brief has a lot to do with that. We included pictures of unborn babies for the justices, and we were really proud of that because they're so compelling.
At the heart of Roe was the question of when life in the womb begins, an issue Christie and others say is clearly proven by newer science.
In 1973, viability was probably 30-something weeks. Now we're down to 22 or 23 weeks. What an amazing difference.
Advancements in prenatal imaging and surgical technology, combined with discoveries in anesthesia for relieving pain, have also been pivotal in ushering in the modern era of fetal surgery.
Imagine this. A surgeon opens a woman's belly, cuts through the wall of her uterus, pulls out her baby with the baby's heart beating, the baby's moving, they anesthetize the baby, operate on the child, and then the mom waits to give birth to hopefully a much healthier baby.
All evidence, many say, can no longer be denied.
This is the truth. This is what science reveals. And so to say otherwise is just simply to ignore the science that's around us today.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Thanks, Charlene. Up next, Nigeria church attack. More than 50 killed on Pentecost Sunday. Who's behind this deadly violence? Stay with us.
The Apostle Paul's letter to the Ephesians is one of the greatest books in the entire Bible. He tells us who we are in Christ and how to live victoriously in the world today.
CBN presents Putting on the Armor of God, a brand new audio recording by Pat Robertson.
It will give you an understanding of your relationship with God, and it will guide you in your relationships with your spouse, your children, your co-workers, and other Christians.
Be encouraged as you listen to Pat's reading of the book of Ephesians.
I pray the Lord will bless you as you listen to His word, and that you will grow in the knowledge of His love, His power, and His plan for you.
Become a CBN partner. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to receive your copy of Putting on the Armor of God.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Welcome back to Christian World News. Scores of people died in a church attack in Nigeria. It happened on Pentecost Sunday in southwestern Ondo State. Gunmen opened fire and set off explosives inside St. Francis Xavier Catholic Church. A local official said at least 50 people died in that attack, including children. The gunmen also took the priest and several others hostage.
The intention was to kill everybody in that church. And those running out, they were being shot from outside. Those who were inside were being shot from inside.
According to Morning Star News, no one has claimed responsibility, but a Muslim group of tribal herdsmen is suspected in the attack. Some Nigerian Christian leaders have said the Fulani attacked Christian communities to take their lands and impose Islam. Well, radical Islamic groups like Boko Haram are waging war on Christians in northern Nigeria. The Muslim Fulani herdsmen have mostly focused their attacks in the middle of the country. But as my colleague George Thomas shows us, their influence is starting to spread.
In Nigeria's so-called Middle Belt region, where the Muslim North meets the Christian South, another terror group made up of Muslim Fulani militants are also terrorizing Christians. More than 1,200 Christians were hacked to death in just the first 6 months of 2020 by Fulani militants.
Middle of the night, coming into Christian villages, burning down the homes, killing the people, just really, really horrible.
The Wall Street Journal reporting how jihadist groups set up random highway checkpoints searching for Christians to kidnap for ransom or simply murder on the roadside. The terror attacks on Christians spiking under Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari's watch. He's a Muslim from the Fulani tribe. Nigerian Christian leaders accuse President Buhari of doing little to stop the bloodletting. CBN News reached out to Nigeria's ambassador in Washington, D.C. for comment on the ongoing persecution of Christians in his country, but got no response.
It's one thing when North Korea does this or when Iran does this, but this is a democracy. There has to be rule of law in this country.
Nigeria's police and army are also mostly made up of Fulani Muslims.
The attackers are never captured. They are not prosecuted. The security services respond very slowly. A full day can go on with attacks happening and no security shows up. And frequently, the government officials will provide cover.
George Thomas, CBN News.
In 2021, the U.S. State Department dropped Nigeria from its list of countries of particular concern regarding religious freedom, a move critics say was to placate the Nigerian government. Religious freedom groups are urging President Biden to put Nigeria back on the list. Up next, a new scientific discovery about the Shroud of Turin. Does it prove the shroud's authentic?
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
This is CBN News Watch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN News Watch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
From generation to generation, we pass on our knowledge, our values, and our strength. In the brand new audio recording, Putting on the Armor of God, Pat Robertson reads the book of Ephesians.
Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you.
Discover the knowledge, values, and strength of the kingdom of God to pass along to the next generation. Available now.
Welcome back to Christian World News. The actual burial cloth of Jesus, or a medieval forgery. The Shroud of Turin has generated controversy for hundreds of years. Now, new scientific evidence gives credence to the authenticity of the shroud. CBN's Gabe LaMonica has details.
This is the story of a piece of cloth. Seen here rescued from a fire over 2 decades ago, surviving just the latest in a series of perils across a journey through history. The first gaze upon this mysterious relic resembles a Rorschach's test of damage dating back hundreds, if not thousands of years. Zoom in a little closer, though.
The stains are real blood.
And the faint image of a tortured, crucified man comes into focus.
Typical medieval portrayals of the crucifixion show the nails in the palms, but the palms wouldn't support the weight of the body.
Look longer, and the serene face of that man becomes clear.
It seems so peaceful in comparison to the violence that you see all over the rest of the body.
Brian Hyland is an exhibit curator at the Museum of the Bible.
There have been questions about the veracity of this image ever since its first documented appearance in the late 14th century.
In 1988, carbon testing dated the shroud back to medieval times. That test has repeatedly been called into question by various experts.
The only single sample they took did not represent anywhere else on that cloth because it had been manipulated.
Now, a new scientific procedure dates fabric from the shroud to roughly 2,000 years ago. That Italian study is just the latest in a long series of scientific testing, including studies of pollen plucked from the shroud with this scientific tape dispenser.
The pollen samples that were gathered, a lot of them are from plants that are native to not just the Middle East, but specifically the area around Judea, Palestine, and Syria, as it was in that time period. There's also pollen from the area around Constantinople. There's a lot of pollen from Europe.
The pollen samples suggest a journey of thousands of miles from Jerusalem through modern-day Turkey and France, and now Italy, where the artifact has been kept since the 16th century. Some say the cloth housed in the Turin Cathedral is a vessel for human blood, and therefore may be nothing less than the Holy Grail.
When you realize that the cloth is a vessel that's containing Christ's blood, I mean, there it is, and it is blood. And not only is it blood, it's type AB, which is the type that's consistent with Palestinian Jews.
Still others call this bit of linen a forgery by none other than Leonardo da Vinci.
We're saying it's a 500-year-old photograph by Leonardo da Vinci, and if that doesn't sound crazy enough, we're saying it's a 500-year-old photograph of Leonardo da Vinci because he used his own face as the model, because that's the kind of thing he did.
Authors Clive Prince and Lynn Picknett even put together their own experiments in an attempt to replicate the religious relic using a bust of the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius and comparing Da Vinci's disputed Salvator Mundi painting to the image on the shroud.
I'm no expert, but the shroud was being publicly shown 100 years before Da Vinci was born. He was a good artist, but it wasn't that good.
Barry Schwartz is a Jewish photographer based in Colorado who was called upon to photograph the Shroud in the 70s.
I was biased against it. And I even said somewhere along the line to somebody that, yeah, you know, we'll get to Turin, we'll give us 5 minutes, we'll find the paint, we'll come home, we'll be done. Yeah, it's 44 years later. And there was no paint, and it's not a painting or an artwork.
No brushstrokes, and another mystery. It's 3D. Scientists using an image analyzer revealed decades ago that the lights and darks of the Shroud image translate into dimensional shapes.
A normal photograph records only variations in light and does not record information about the distance the camera was from the subject. Now we'll put a picture of the Shroud under the camera.
This image is clearly recognizable. This can only be explained if the intensity levels of the Shroud image itself are encoded with distance information from the cloth to the body.
Now, British filmmaker David Rolfe is out with his fourth film, Who Can He Be?, investigating the Shroud of Turin, using the latest tech to digitally extract data encoded in the fabric, revealing a three-dimensional model of a man.
We can see what I believe to be the body of the crucified Jesus in front of us on a piece of cloth, whereby the only way that that image could have got onto that cloth is a miraculous one, a miracle that emanated from the body with unbelievable amounts of energy, but with an infinitesimally short space of time.
No matter the evidence, the Shroud of Turin may always remain a mystery. But for many, this mirror of the gospel, as Pope John Paul II called it, connects them to the divine. Gabe LaMonica, CBN News, Washington.
From Washington, D.C.
Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation.
Uncompromising stories, interviews, and analysis from veteran journalists David Brody, John Jessup, Jenna Browder, and Eric Phillips, bringing you the political news that matters.
Regulations on the energy industry are going to have dramatic ripple effects throughout the economy.
News you can trust.
We're people who are committed to protecting the most weakest and the most vulnerable.
Watch Faith Nation, weeknights at 6.
The Apostle Paul's letter to the Ephesians is one of the greatest books in the entire Bible. He tells us who we are in Christ and how to live victoriously in the world today.
CBN presents Putting on the Armor of God, a brand new audio recording by Pat Robertson.
It will give you an understanding of your relationship with God, and it will guide you in your relationships with your spouse, your children, your co-workers, and other Christians.
Be encouraged as you listen to Pat's reading of the book of Ephesians.
I pray the Lord will bless you as you listen to His word, and that you will grow in the knowledge of His love, His power, and His plan for you.
Become a CBN partner. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to receive your copy of Putting on the Armor of God.
As the world watches from the outside,
it's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Finally this week, in Israel, a new discovery sheds new light on what life was like in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell brings us the story.
In the Emek Zurim Park, visitors can sift through debris from the ongoing excavation in the city of David. That's where Liel Kudakop found a rare silver coin from the time of the Second Temple.
It feels something not normal. And I go to their archaeologist, was there, and he cleaned it a little bit, and then he told me, and for my family, that's a silver coin.
At first, Liel's father thought they should throw it away.
Actually, it didn't look like a coin, so I was thinking to myself, this is some kind of stone, and actually I told to the girls put it in the garbage can, but they insisted that this is a coin, and they took the coin to the archaeologist that was on the site, and he confirmed that this is indeed a coin.
I was very excited, and it's like some happy feel because somebody touched it before 2,000 years, and right now I'm touched.
This is a very rare find. Together with this silver coin, we know from the archaeological documentation only 30 other silver coins from the rebellion.
The coin has 2 Hebrew inscriptions.
We can see here the words in ancient Hebrew, Shekel Israel, and a second line with 2 Hebrew letters, Shin Bet, which means the second year of the rebellion against the Romans, 67-8 AD. On the other side of the coin, we have another inscription in ancient Hebrew, which says, LeYerushalayim HaKdosha, to Holy Jerusalem.
Archaeologists believe the high priest in the temple wanted the coin to help pay for the revolt against the Romans.
Coins were minted in order to emphasize independence of certain communities. So the Jews that rebelled against the Romans wanted to emphasize that they are independent.
The Hebrew wording on the coin harkens back to the First Temple for a reason.
To the time of King David and his son King Solomon. The Jews wanted to emphasize their connection to the great kingdom of Israel led by King David. They missed it. They wanted their kingdom to be as large as King David's kingdom.
The coin came from a layer of debris dating to the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD.
I'm standing on the remains of the ancient pilgrimage road that led Jews from all over the world to the temple itself. When the Romans destroyed Jerusalem and the street itself, all the structures that stood on both sides of this street collapsed into one pile.
To Levy, the discovery is like traveling back in time.
To hold this silver coin is like going back 2,000 years ago and actually touching the daily life of the people that lived in Jerusalem.
Liel's mother sees it as more proof of Jewish life in Jerusalem.
It tells a lot about the history, about the people that lived here, about everything, about the history of this place, of Jerusalem, and the meaning of this place to us, to the Israelis, to the Jewish people. So yes, it means a lot.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thanks, Chris. Isn't that amazing? So much information included in just one little coin that tells such a story. Love it. Well, thanks for joining us for this week. Until next week, from all of us here at Christian World News, goodbye. And as always, God bless you.